Download the app today and keep watching Sew & Quarter on the move.
Welcome back. Absolutely one of my favourite guests here today, Helen McCook, wealth of knowledge on embroidery. Any lovers of embroidery, or if you love crafts and sewing, you're in for a treat this hour. Crewel work is something I don't actually know if we've covered here at Sew & Quarter before, and it's just gorgeous. So 2 kits, I will briefly go over them, and then we're going to go straight over to Helen and talk about them in detail. So she's put together these 2 gorgeous kits for us. I instantly want to touch them. I'm not going to, but because of all the textures, they're just beautiful. Aren't they amazing? It's like a sampler of so many different stitches here. You can do this at home. You can do this. It looks so impressive, and I know that we're all in awe of the pieces, but I mean, you can create this yourself. So Helen's put together 2 beautiful kits for us, a bit of an introductory to crewel work, and you obviously get your instructions and templates in here, your Jacobean curly leaf, plus you will get your lovely fabric, which again, I'm going to say this very, very loosely, and we're going to talk in more detail about what exactly you're getting in the kit with Helen, as she sourced it all for us. So she's put together all of the fabric and the walls as well. So, to create something as beautiful as this, all you're going to pay is £20.99. It's such an affordable kit as well, with your fabric, and wait until you hear about the heritage of this beautiful wool as well. 100% pure English wool. Your different shades of purple, of pinks, of yellows, of golds, they're absolutely gorgeous. Right, we're not going to have enough kits, they're going to go. If you've got it in your basket, I mean it more than ever, please check out. So many of you have put them straight into your basket. There's what the kit looks like. Loads of you have already put it into your baskets. We needed more of these, we needed more. Okay, keep trying, but it may be about to sell out. The other one that we have is the Jacobean Bee and Bud. It's beautiful as well, the oranges. And again, in the kit, of course, you'll get all of Helen's instructions, which are lovely. They come with the templates as well. Look at the photographs, the step-by-step photographs, and really detailed of how to do all of the different stitches. It's a bit of a stitching sort of guide, isn't it? You've got so many different stitches, a sampler stitch sort of embroidery piece actually. You're going to be able to learn loads of different stitches. There's your template at the back. £20.99 fabric and your beautiful pure wool. 25 metres on each of these. So you've got the pinks, oranges, greens, the blues again. £20.99 plus your fabric also. They're your 2 kits. All I'm going to say is good luck, because I know that they're going to sell out. It always happens whenever Helen is here and she puts together these beautiful kits for us. So definitely make the most of them whilst you can. Okay, what do I need to take with me? Let me take these. Whoops. I'll grab the hoops and we'll bring the stands over. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, it's so lovely to see you back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You?
Good. How are you?
I'm very, very well, thank you. I love your work. It's
Thank you.
just beautiful. Whenever Helen comes in and she brings in all these beautiful samples, it's just incredible. And I know you've already got Jenny's been talking about you on air, as has Susie. Everyone's just lovely looking at all of your work.
Thank you.
Instantly, I want to touch all of these. The different textures are amazing with crewel work.
Must mean I've done something right, because basically textiles is a bit of a perverse thing, particularly embroidery, because if you've done it right, you should want to touch it, but if you're touching it, you're decaying it. So it's why we normally put it behind glass and things like this. But what I love about crewel work is it was quite often used for furnishings. So they were lived with textiles, so you want to be able to touch them, to feel at home with them, recline on them when they're on your cushions. So they're very hard wearing. Okay. Hence the fabrics that we use and the threads that we use.
So what fabric is it that you've put into the kit?
Well, essentially it's a really good, the whole thing is a heritage kit basically. It's heritage embroidery. So we're looking at traditional linen twill, so it's Scottish linen twill in this case, actually made on looms that are around 200 years old.
Oh, wow.
So it's as close as you could get to the original fabric from the 17th century. So, and then we've got the Apperton's Crewel wools, which they're fantastic. I mean, they're such a lovely British company, and they use, as you say, English wool, sourced from around Bradford area. And it was actually the company that William Morris originally used their threads before he started dyeing his own.
Wow,
so,
and I think they still continue with those same colours,
absolutely, yeah, traditional colours. You can see I've got a full colourway here, so it's like a lovely little, like a sweetie jar of threads, basically. So you can get all sorts of things, but it's like mine's looking a bit battered, and you've got little notes hanging off the end, but you can see it's gorgeous, and it's beautiful because the thread only fades within its colour family. It doesn't go outside its colour family. It stays to a slightly softer version of itself. The threads shouldn't, once they're secure into the fabric, they shouldn't snap, they shouldn't break, unless you've got little moths who happen to quite like, particularly the green threads. They particularly like the green shades. But something about the dye they really like about that. But yeah, I mean, it's basically it's going to be a textile that lasts well beyond you and your children and your children's children.
I love
so
that.
yeah, heritage skills and heritage fabrics and threads. So.
Where was it traditionally used?
Well, actually, we think of it. I always joke, being a Brummie, so I always joke that it's about the equivalent of a Balti dish, basically.
Right.
So we all think of Balti as being Indian, and it's not. It's actually a Brummie thing. It's a British thing, but it's basically taken an Indian an Indian dish, and then changed it into a fusion thing.
Okay.
Well, this actually started with the East India Trading Company, so the ships went across to the furthest coast of India, and because we were actually shipping from a different part of India than had been shipped from before, we started to see textiles in India that were made for Indians. So rather than pieces made for export in a Western style, we started to see authentic textiles. So that actually really influenced what came over, because we'd never seen this type of textile before. All the chintzes and palanpurs and the tree of life design. So what we basically did was we started to then emulate. So a lot of embroidery was designed to copy something that was very rare and expensive. So what we did was then started to create our own pieces inspired by those original prints. And then basically we started, because we couldn't get the designs quick enough, and we didn't know, we hadn't seen these animals before, these plants. We didn't know what colours they were. We didn't know the scale, the relative scale of them. So they start to be really interesting and quirky pieces of textiles. So you get elephants that are green and all sorts of things. It can happen. So it has this Eden-like quality. It's very robust, made on very heavy British fabrics, which we've got plenty of, and British threads, and it's just this
often very valuable as well.
Absolutely, yes. So it's and it then developed in its own way. So it grew legs basically. So and then latterly it became more delicate. So rather than the wool threads and the linen, we started to see it being worked in silk threads on silk fabrics, and it started to go into fashion rather than furnishings. So you see, there's a silk version there.
So this would have been used then in fashion as opposed to.
Yeah, so it became more delicate, and it started to inspire across sideways into fashion, so rather than being furnishing based.
When did you start learning about crewel work, or where did your passion begin? Because you're obviously so passionate about it. Your wealth of knowledge is amazing.
Thank you. No, it's just a technique. I think it's like the ultimate stitch sampler.
Okay.
So one of the first pieces that we trained in as an apprentice at the RSN, at the Royal School of Needlework, was this was my piece. So this was my training piece. So it went in and out and in and out. You took it in, you reverse stitched a lot, and this was the end result. So, which I think is it's one of those techniques that is really forgiving, because it's the ultimate stitch sampling so far. It's got different textures. You put very textural, crispy, crunchy textures against really smooth. You've got really lovely, lightly worked areas against really heavily filled areas, and it creates this beautiful pattern that it all kind of contrasts with each other and just creates something really pleasing. And
is it all using the same wool?
Yeah, all the same wool.
Really? Because it all looks, like you say, different textures.
Yeah, it's all the stitches. The different types of stitches create lots of different textures, and as you say, you just want to touch it. It's fine. It's quite robust. It's not going to fall to pieces. So, but yeah, so it's just such a really pleasing piece, and for somebody who stitched never stitched before, they can come and pick it up, and there's lovely basic stitches that we can do. For somebody who's more advanced, there's more complex combinations of stitches that you can do. It's something for everyone. Brilliant. So it's, you know, you name it. We've done 2 kits here, and they've got similar stitches on both, completely opposite colourways, so that there's something for each colour palette. And they tend to be quite limited colour palettes. So in this case, we've got 4 of one colour. So for example, we've got 4 of the purple, 4 of the kind of barley tones, the goldy tones, and then 2 of the pink.
And that's
on the curly leaf.
That's your curly leaf.
Yeah.
Just a stock update whilst I'm showing this one. With your curly leaf, which is your purples and those lovely golds as well. Go on, Hayley. Okay, I don't think it's great news, if I'm being honest. If you want this, I think it's incredibly limited now. In fact, it might even be gone. Go on, that one, the orange. That one's now sold out. Oh. If everybody checks out, then that's completely sold out. There's literally a couple of those remaining, but there's loads of you that have got that in your basket. How about the purple? We need more kits. Okay. They're beautiful, aren't they? They're absolutely amazing. That one's sold out as well. I'm so sorry. We had loads of these as well, but this happened last time. We need to get more. Enjoy.
Well, as I say, it's funny because people think it's a really specialised thing, but it's actually something that everyone can do. So it's a really user-friendly technique. So yeah, you want more kits, you let me know.
Absolutely.
We'll get it sorted.
Another thing that you said for us to get in was this hoop. Now it's back in stock, so the graphics are going in for that because you want it to be hands-free.
Yes,
don't you?
yeah. So this is called a barrel clamp. So you attach it to a table, you screw it with a little plastic knob to the table, and then you've got the dowel, which is adjustable, so you can adjust the height. We've got it quite high on quite a high table for me to stand for you, but the advantage is that it means that it keeps your fabric nice and taut, but it also means that you can use both hands, so I don't have to support it using one of my hands, which means one hand is out of action, which is not great, but also it actually tends to be quite sore through the hand after a while. So this is quite user friendly. You know, if you have arthritis or things like that, problems with the hands, this is going to help alleviate some of those within your hobby. We all live a busy
life as well. If you want to stop, you can stop.
You can leave it attached to the table. You can take this to pieces. It's quite easy. You know, you just fold it up. The dowel's just there. You can pop it away in a bag.
Fab.
I take mine onto trains, planes, you name it. I've been known to do. I was working last week on the motorway. I hasten to add, I was not driving.
Yes.
So
it's a good talking point though if you're sitting on the train with that, isn't it?
Yeah. People quite often they'll kind of start with the eyeballs and then they'll start to kind of lean in, and you're like, I don't mind you looking, please ask questions, but can get off the arm. Like, I can't work. So, you know, I'll turn it around so you can have a look. So it's a really interesting
you're talking about turning it around so you can have a look.
Yeah.
You've tilted it up slightly, haven't you? How would you ideally work with it at home?
Well, I mean, normally you can choose to have it however way suits, but I would normally have it bent towards myself with the dowel here away from me, so I don't catch on the dowel so much with my threads. But some people like to have it turned away and towards them because they want it slightly higher. Okay. So whichever way that you choose is comfortable for you.
Yeah.
So it's very versatile for you, and you need to just make it fit to your needs really and your eyesight. So, and always make sure that you're working in good light, because you don't want to be working in your own shadow, for example, because it makes it harder to see.
Yeah, so. And it is something it comes with a bit of an addiction warning. You lose hours, don't you?
Absolutely. Set an alarm clock if you need to go out. Exactly. You'll suddenly realise it's 3 o'clock in the morning. You've got the snacks on, and you need to also go to bed because you need to get up next morning for something. So, yeah, set an alarm clock or have somebody tell you it's time. Yeah. Time out, time to go. So
a few stitches then. So we've got our hoop, which, by the way, that's going to sell out as well. Surprise, surprise. So if you do want it, make the most of that as quickly as you can.
Yeah, so there's loads of stitches. It's, as I say, it's the ultimate stitch sampler because we basically made up, it was based off printed fabric, so we then made up whatever stitches we thought were pleasing. So, as I say, you put textural against smooth and heavy against light. So one of the things that we can do that is very common to Jacobean is you put trellis into large areas. Now, I've already got my trellis in because if anyone saw the last show, we actually showed how to do trellis. But what you do is you create long stitches front and back to create this grid. So I think you can call that back on YouTube. But,
yeah, we'll find out what date that was for.
Yeah, so that was the bloom. But then you want to hold those long stitches down because, as I say, you want a durable piece of textile. So those are very long. I could catch that and then quite easily break that thread. So what you do is you hold those stitches down. In this case, I've just used a tiny little pip of a stitch. And you want to make sure, the problem that people have most often with trellis is that when they put the holding stitches in, they come up too close and they nudge the bar out of the way, so you don't end up with a lovely grid. So you need to make sure that your little holding stitch is small enough that you get a lovely little pip of a stitch, but not so close that you're nudging all of your bars out of the direction that you want them to be in. So that's at the intersection point of each of these crossovers, you put a little holding stitch. And I've used a contrast colour in this case, blue. But your kit, I mean, you can use the colours in your kit in any format you like and it will look lovely. So if you don't like quite the placement within the kit, you can use that colourway and think, oh, actually, I'd rather see that here and that there, and it's still going to look great.
You haven't stranded these? You haven't taken these strands?
No, you use them exactly as they are.
Okay.
It's a 2-ply twisted wool. It's the traditional Crewel wool. It's got a long staple fibre. And
do you need a particular needle to get through the
yeah, you want
eye?
a chenille or you want a Crewel needle.
Okay.
And that because basically if you struggle to thread up your needles, you'll want to use a chenille because they have a slightly bigger eye, slightly longer eye. But as I say, that's the chenille you've got there. And then, as I say, you've got, people also use Crewel needles as well. So it's personal preference. If you do think you need something with a bigger eye, go for a chenille.
Okay,
so
they're your chenille needles. They are size 18 to 24 and then 99 pence. Just add them to your order. And then the other ones are craft needles.
Yeah.
How are these?
So these, you've got a selection of Crewel in there and you've got some chenilles as well. So it's just a mixture.
There you go. That's a nice big selection. You've got doll needles as well, doll making soft sculpture needles in there. Very affordable for the amount of needles. And John James, they're great quality. 33 different craft needles for £1.99. Brilliant.
Yeah. So once you've done your trellis, you can leave it as it is, but you can also...
the trellis you said was demonstrated, wasn't it,
Yeah,
on the
it was
22nd of May?
Brilliant, thank you. And then you'll decorate them. So in this case, we're going to use little lazy daisies, which lazy daisy, everyone recognises the phrase. That's the generic kind of popular name. The technical phrase for it is a detached chain stitch. So it's just a single chain stitch. So what we're going to do is you come up and down to the same hole, and then we're basically going to come up in the loop that creates. That makes a lovely little petal shape, and we're going to go down on the outside of it and hold it into position. All we're going to do is we're going to, you can see I started in the very corner here, and I'm going to work around the next 3 squares using that corner base as the central point to work round. So we'll rotate round, so it gives you a flower. So it's a really simple effect. So if you keep working round like that, and then if we pass over what they've both got it in, so you can see I've put, if I put it here, you can see you've got, when you get the 4 round together, so on the bee and bird, with a little fuzzy bee here, it's the trellis is in the bottom in the hillock, whereas in the curly leaf, it's in the curly leaf itself. So you can see it's...
in the hillock, did you call it?
Hillock, yes. So the tree of life is quite often based, you need a grounding for it. So in this case, it's a hillock, so a mini hill. It's exactly what it sounds like on the tin.
We've learned so much.
So tiny hillocks.
And who's designed these? Where have these patterns come from?
Basically, I've used very old motifs, so traditional 17th century motifs, to pull together into a completely new pair here for the show. So they've never been done anywhere else before, so they're completely fresh. And as I say, but they're heritage motifs. So kind of the nice thing that I like about Jacobean is that it's so experimental with stitching, but it's also motif-wise, off the same stem and off the same trunk, you'll see different fruit, flowers, leaves, and it doesn't matter because they were basically trying to get as much texture and as much kind of design change as possible throughout the piece. So in real life, these plants would never exist in this way, and they become quite abstracted from the original form, but that's part of the beauty of the technique, I think. So, but yeah, so there's lots of different stitches. We'll also do...
And you can stop and start. I mean, you've got stitches.
So yeah, I wouldn't normally stop and start as much as this. So it's all started just so that you can see it go and we can demonstrate without people having to watch me kind of thread needles and start threads off and stuff like that. So you don't kind of get bored. But just so we can demonstrate as much as possible. Now we looked at the detached chain stitch, lazy daisy. Normal chain stitch is the same process. We're going to use it to outline the bottom hillock here. And what you do is, it's the same process as we were doing before, but instead of finishing just on the outside of it, we'll go back down into that loop. And that means that you can then do another chain link. Okay, and they all interlink into each other. That's the thing that people quite often get wrong with chain stitch. They haven't got each chain link into each other, so if one bit is outside, it breaks the effect of it. So you must have your needle, your thread coming up and down from the same chain link to create the next chain link.
And how much thread do you work with? How much wool are you working with? Is it sort of a...
Normally it's a fingertip to elbow length, so it's the traditional measurement, which is an L or an L, so fingertip to elbow. And with these threads, that is a good length to use. If you find that your tension is quite tight, you know, because each person's tension is very different. So if you find that is the case, you might want to go wrist to elbow. So if you find that you're, you know, very strong in the hand, then, you know, you might find it snapping, in which case, as I say, just go for a shorter length. And as I say, with this, it's so user-friendly. And your needles, as I say, you want the nice big eye on your needles, so you don't have any problems threading it up, and you're good to go. So
if you are using a shorter amount of thread and you're halfway through and you need to then start a new thread, is that...
It's quite straightforward. So if I show you with the thread that I've just finished off, so I've just started that chain stitch, but if I pop that back into the needle, and then what we can do is I'll show you how to finish the thread, and you finish the thread and start the thread in the same way. So if I had run out of thread, I'd come up on that line or in an area that I know I'm going to cover. I'll do 2 tiny stitches just on or next to each other, nice and small and tight. And then I'll bring that, and then you bring that thread up and pull it tight and snip it off on the face of the fabric. That's nice and secure, but obviously I'm now going to continue that thread, that line of chain stitch over the top, so as I stitch over it becomes more secure. So it's a good way of finishing, and I say it means you've got less lumps and bumps on the back, so it's a bit controllable. But yeah, so all those threads, as I say, it's nice and easy. You just find an area you know you're going to cover, because you don't want little starting stitches in places you're going to leave open, because as I say, Jacobin, you do want some open places and you want some heavily covered areas. So you've got plenty to choose from. So just take a look, and if in doubt, put it on the outside line, the pen line, and then that means that we can actually cover it. And that's, as I say, I've drawn it on originally using, you've got a template in your pack and you've got the linen twill. You could use something like the erasable pen. So if you put your template underneath, as I say, you can really see, it's really straightforward. So what you do is you just basically line it up, trace over the top. You could use a quilting pencil as well if you wanted, but you can see it's really easy and straightforward to transfer on. And the beauty about the erasable pen is that if there's anything that you haven't quite covered with your stitching line at the end, you can just remove it with water, and you could use either just immerse the whole thing into a bowl of nice clean water and then leave it to dry out of the frame, or you can be delicate about it and use a very, very clean brush dipped in water.
I suppose you've got to be careful, because you don't want to disrupt the texture too much.
You don't want to agitate the fibres too much. But you know, the advantage is that you could use a little cotton bud and just dip it in and dab it on carefully. And once it's dry, if you're seeing any of the blue, it just needs to be dispersed a little bit more. So you just need to flood the area a little bit more with the water.
By the way, the light box that you can see there, it's not running across the bottom of the screen, is it? No, it will be running across the bottom of the screen. This is a great light box as well, actually, because it does actually have lots of different light settings. How do you use it, sorry, within the project then?
So basically it's to transfer the pattern onto the fabric itself. So the fabric comes blank, and then you basically use the water erasable pen and a light box. You put the template on top, and then you just pop your fabric on top of that, and then you can see straight through it, and you just find, with your light box, you find the strength of light that you feel helps you to see the pattern. So if you have it a bit dimmer, you might struggle. If you have it brighter, you'll definitely see it through, because the twill is a very thick, heavy twill, which is the traditional weight. So you want a brighter light on your light box so you can see it.
Brilliant, thank you.
No props.
I've had so many lovely messages in for you, by the way.
Thank you.
So many lovely messages.
That's always really nice, So
lots of fan mail.
Oh, thank you. we've got coral stitch, which is a lovely stitch, but people quite often have a problem with coral stitch. So, and it's all about the way you lay the thread. So I thought it'd be a really nice one to demonstrate.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is, the first thing I'd do is I'd use 2 strands in my needle. You can see I've got 2 there because it looks a bit spindly when you've got 1.
What does the coral stitch
look like? So coral stitch is the thread that stitch that goes up here. It basically looks like knots running along a line. And it's the one up the central stem. So on the fuzzy bee, the bee and bud, it's the central stem leading to the flower. And then here there's multiple lines running all the way up in the barley tones up to the large flower and the pomegranate. So
do you give sort of stitch suggestions in your instructions of which ones you've added where, or is it up to us?
Yeah, there's a stitch plan in the actual pack. So it tells you what I've used where. And it is colour by colour, step by step, so you can see how I've built it up. But as I say, with this, there's not too much, you're not going to run into too much of a problem if you deviate. So if you decide, actually, I'd like to have this stitch there and that stitch there and this colour here, personalise all you like. It's your piece of work. I'm not going to see it unless you send photos in, but which would be lovely.
But do.
Yeah, so it's I'm not judging. You know, I'm not precious. It's your piece of work. So the idea is that you just enjoy the stitches, and some of them are more suited to large areas. So trellis is suited to fill in a large area, and some are suited to small areas. But it's completely your call. Just experiment. Feel happy with it.
Enjoy.
Exactly.
Everyone's loving all your inspiration. And I must say as well, thank you for bringing this back in, because we love talking about this. So Helen was the Designer of the Year at the National Needlework Awards.
Yes, the Needlecraft Awards. So I was absolutely blown away to be chosen for that. So it was such an honour, and it was one of those things that I was in such an auspicious group. You know, I'd got a lot of friends and colleagues in that group with me, and I would have been absolutely chuffed for any of us to get it, because it was such a good group. So I was really honoured to receive it.
How exciting.
Thank you.
How exciting.
Thank you. Right, so shall we pop back to coral stitch? So before I completely forget and start something else. So what you want to do is you want to lay the thread forward in the direction that you're travelling, and then you're going to go down on the right hand side. That gives you a little loop that you come up in parallel to where you went down on the other side of the thread that you laid forward. Can you see that?
Yeah.
If you aren't coming up in that loop, you aren't going to get the knotted effect, and that is how you get the knot. Now the last thing I do is I use the needle to help tension that, so I'm putting my needle in that loop and just using it to help to get a nice tension, and that's going to give you a lovely finish. So if I do that again, lay the thread forward, choose the distance that you want between your knots, because you want to get them nice and even. So you can see I've chosen a nice distance. There's my last knot. Travel forward, and you can see I've held that so I get the loop. Now I'm going to come up parallel to where I went down on the inside of that loop, and that means that I'm going to get that knot. And again, I'm going to just use that needle to help my tension.
Gosh.
Okay? It's really straightforward.
It is actually. I know, do you know, so many people who are saying, and Hayley, our producer, she's saying that I'd love to have a go at this, but she's never done it before. But actually, if you break it down like that,
step by step,
anyone can do it.
Absolutely, it's that. As I say, eating the elephant, it's one bite at a time. It's the thing that you. It seems quite overwhelming, because it is a really attractive finish that you get, and it's so textural, and you think, oh, you know, I could never do that. But actually, one step at a time, and you'll probably know some of the stitches.
Yeah.
You know, there's a back stitch in here, there's chain stitch, you know, there's stem stitch, things that people have probably seen and had to go at previously. But and then you can go forward from that, buttonhole stitches. You know, they're not complex stitches. It's just that when they're broken down, it becomes more achievable. So as I say, with the coral stitch as well, what you want to do is, because we've got multiple rows to fill the area. In this case, we've got, on the curly leaf, we've got multiple rows up here, and I've changed colour. Whereas on the main stem, on the bee and bud, we've got 2 rows. But what I've done either way is I've made sure, if I just take this down, I want to show you how the rows lie with each other. So I'm just going to be naughty, just ignore my bad habits here. I'm going to pop back to the start so I don't keep you waiting. And what you want to do is, on your next row, you want to make sure that your knot is sitting at the halfway point in between the knots on the previous row, and it means you'll get a lovely texture, because basically the lines the different rows of it will kind of lie into each other. So because if you aligned the knots, you'd basically end up with big gaps in between because the knots are wider than the straight stitch.
Right.
So if you had them next to each other, they'll sit with a gap in between, whereas if you half drop them into the gap, you'll end up with a lovely texture as they walk up. So you'll, as you say, bricking pattern, so it'll end up with a lovely finish. So yeah, you'll end up with a lovely texture through there, and it will be a lovely foil against all the other things that you've got going on. So that's coral stitch.
Amazing. We've had a question come in.
Yeah.
Have you got it on the email, Hayley, or is it? Go on. No. No, just, oh, here we go. Morning, Charlotte in Devon. Morning to you both, just tuned in. And I know it's a basic question, but I was wondering, what is the best fabric to use for embroidery?
Depends on what you're trying to do, to be honest. Hi, Charlotte. Basically, you could, if you're wanting to just practice something really simple and cheap, like calico or cotton, just get something into a hoop and start playing with it. You could use any thread you like. It could be wools, it could be stranded cottons, anything that gets you started. And once you've built up a bit of confidence, you decide what basically you want to use that project for. So if it's something a bit more hard wearing, so a furnishing fabric, you'd use something a bit thicker. But it's just about the look more than anything else. And as long as it's going to sufficiently support the level of embroidery you're going to put in, you want to keep the tension nice and tight in the frame. And if you think you want to use a more delicate fabric that isn't going to maybe support the type of embroidery you want to do, layer up behind that fabric, as we've done previously, with maybe a bit of calico or a couple of pieces of calico. And as long as everything's nice and taut in the frame, everything could be fine and dandy.
Thank you, Charlotte, for your message. Also, Ellen said, as normal, too mesmerising.
Oh. Thanks, Ellen. So.
And another one from Emma as well. Thank you for getting in touch with us, Emma. It's not on here yet. How's? Just tell me what it is, sorry. Love to watch Helen. Recently started embroidery, picking up lots of tips. Love the kits, and the book is on its way. Oh, talking of the book.
Yes.
The book is gorgeous as well. Is there a section on crewel work in here?
There is, there's a section on crewel work written by Jackie McDonald, one of my colleagues and friends, and it's brilliant. It's basically step by step. It's lots of different stitches. The crewel work, I think, is in the front, towards the front area. And there you go.
Oh, was I there?
Yep.
So, this is such a heavy book,
I know.
isn't
So
it?
you've got the history and design.
Oh, lovely.
And then, so it gives you a bit of history and a bit of design style ideas. And then you're going through, you've got how to start, how to kind of frame up and things like that. And then you've got lots and lots of different stitches, step by step, how to do them. So as I say, it's like an encyclopedia. I've said it before, I'll say it again, it's like an encyclopedia of stitch. And very useful.
You'd actually written the goldwork section?
Yes, I wrote the goldwork section, and I did all the imagery for the mounting section in the back, so how to mount your embroidery as well. So there's lots in there, lots of different techniques, and Jacobine is, I think, the first section in the book.
The photographs are beautiful as well,
I know, really well photographed, so it's Search Press book, so it's RSN and Search Press publications.
That's something we actually have stock of, so do make the most of that. It's £25, and I believe you've signed all these
I have,
for us,
yes.
haven't you?
I sat with a Sharpie and very diligently put my moniker on it,
Thank you very much. So that's £25, and as Helen said, it really is your encyclopedia, your teacher through all sorts of, lots of styles. White work's in there as well.
Oh yeah, white work, gold work, black work, you name it, bead work, it's all in there, so it'll keep you quiet for hours.
Beautiful. Thank you. That's £25. Right. So what stitch you got? What to show now?
So I thought I'd show you fly stitch. So we've got fly stitch in this design in two areas. We've got individual ones in the bottom here, and then we've got them linked together through the top. So what we're going to do is you come up and you go down, leaving a lovely gap. And if you imagine it's like a triangle basically. So you can see I've held that thread, and then I come up as the third point of the triangle, and then that will hold that stitch in place, and then you go down on the outside of it. Very similar to the chain stitch, but very open this time. And then with this, we've just spaced them out so that they're staggering across. And again, you go to the halfway point this time so that you get a lovely finish
Yeah, it's really effective, isn't it?
Yeah, so for what seems like a very large area, you can put some delicate stitches, some little individual stitches, well spaced across them, and it will work. And if you wanted to, you could do different sizes of fly stitch. So again, there's room for interpretation and personalisation within it. So you just put what you think is pleasing. And if you're not sure, you could always draw onto your template, which you've drawn it off, you know, which you've used it. So just use your pencil and draw on top and think, oh, I'll have a little scribble on there. If it works right on paper, it'll work right when you've stitched it. So yeah, save you a bit of time as well. But what else shall we do? Shall we do seeding? Yeah. So seeding's a funny one.
Is that the sort of
speckle?
Yeah, speckle. Yeah. So have you used that on this sampler?
Yeah, we've got double seeding here. And then on the other one, we've got double seeding and single seeding. So double seeding is quite unusual. You only see it in Jacobean. So it's where it looks like an equal sign. Right, so you've got each stitch has got a twin. So it's, but here you can see double seeding in the bottom, and then we've got single seeding in the top of the flower. So up there. So, I'll show you single seeding, and then I'll show you double seeding, because it's such a straightforward leap from one to the next. Now, seeding's a funny one because people quite often struggle with it because it's random. So, and random's quite hard. It's harder than people think.
Yeah, especially when a lot of us who maybe do patchwork and all sorts as well are very
regimented. Yeah. Everything's got to be a certain length. Now, the rules with seeding is basically like you've got to have, if you've got a handful of jelly beans and you drop them on the floor, they're all the same length and the same size. So basically, if you drop them on the floor, they'll land at random angles, and that's the idea with seeding. Okay. So what you want is you don't want a clump of them in one half and then nothing in the other half, unless you're trying to grade out and create a very definite effect. So what you want to do is you want to have stitches the same length, even coverage, but random angles, and it's the random angles that people struggle with. So my general rule of thumb with it is, if you're working around from yourself, if you look at the last two stitches you've put in and then put a stitch in that's a different angle to the last two, it will look random. Right. Don't look at the overview, look at just the angles to the last two that you've put in. So you can see I've put two in there. So basically, as long as my stitch angle is a different direction to those two, it will look random. So, and you can work around from yourself.
It's quite a big sort of weave, isn't it? That you can see your spacing.
So you can basically see it quite easily. And what you want to do as well is, I find it quite useful to really emphasise how long that stitch is going to be. I like to hold my thread taut so that I can see I'm going to get the same length of stitch or a very similar length of stitch. Now, if you were going to make that into double seeding, it basically, as I say, each one has a twin. It's like an equal sign. So you want to leave a little even gap and put in its mate. So again, you can see it's got its little pair. So it's just a heavier effect. You can see just immediately that pairing just looks heavier, doesn't it? Yeah. So it's just to create weight. So if you wanted to, you could use double seeding here and single seeding there, and it would look shaded. Or you can change colour with it if you want. So it's a really kind of generous effect. You can do all sorts.
Like you said, it really is a stitch sampler, really, isn't it? You can try out loads of stitches, and you've given that springboard to then say, right, here are all the stitches. Yeah, play around with it and colour it in with your stitches as much as you want.
Be brave. It's nobody's going to judge you. You know, be brave, enjoy it. It's just a playground, basically. You can play with the texture, you can play with the colour, you can play with the combinations. If there's stitches on here that you love, then great, use them in another area. If there's particular ones that aren't on here because there's so many stitches and you want to incorporate it, pop it in. It's really open to interpretation. As I say, this is a guide, it's a starting point. So you'll get a lovely piece if you finish it, but as I say, even if you decide to amble off the path that I've set for you, it's going to be great. So
yeah, definitely make the most of anything that's available today. Actually, do you know what? We said that the book, we had plenty of them. Again, that one's going to sell out. 60% has already sold out and checked out completely. They're all the signed ones as well. We'd have to ask Helen very nicely to sign more when we get more. So make the most of all of those. There's 60% of today's stock is completely sold out. And there's lots of you that have got it in your basket. So just to remind you, make the most of it. Single figures on the frame as well, by the way. Just single figures left of the hoop frame. And we've just got that back in stock today.
It's a good tool, that's the thing.
Yeah.
You can see how it makes things easier. It's just really straightforward. Right, I thought I'd show you pistol stitches. So that's a bit of an unusual one. So everyone knows French knots.
Yeah.
So basically, a French knot is where you travel round.
How many times do you wrap it?
Only one.
Really?
So yeah. So if you want to basically be able to control a stitch. So if you want to be a master of it, you want to be able to make it happen again and again and again, and make it look the same.
Yeah.
If that's what you're choosing to do. Whereas if you're using one thread and multiple wraps, you're not going to get the same effect. Whereas if you use multiple threads and one wrap, it's going to sit the same way each time. So if you want to make it thinner or fatter after that, it's just the tension that you're pulling it to. So as I say, it's a controllable thing. So I would use, in this case, as a single thread. You can wrap around once, go down into virtually the same hole but not the same hole, and then pull through. But, as I say, it's got a cousin, which is a pistol stitch, so it's a travelling French knot, basically. So, and what we do with that is it's a French knot with a leg. So, all we do with that is we start off exactly the same. We wrap round the French knot, wrap round the thread, sorry, and then we don't go down next to ourselves, we go down at the chosen distance that you want to travel. So, in this case, you can see I've left about 1 centimetre, and then all you do is take it down. So, it's, as I say, French knot with a leg. Really straightforward.
Yeah.
As I say, French knots, it's a funny one. People quite often struggle with French knots, and it's just because they're wrapping too many times, or they're not taking the needle down and tensioning that thread. That means they get a little bunny loop. So like a little ear. So so I say,
but they're used a lot, aren't they? You use them all the
it's
time.
such a popular thing. And equally, if you wanted to just travel off the course of Jacobean, if you wanted to put beads in rather than French knots, you could put beads too. But as I say, that's non-traditional if you're doing that. But if you're wanting to stay really kind of heritage, you'll pop your French knots in, and you'll get that lovely little knot and texture.
And just while we're talking about being a rebel and venturing outside of traditional, this doesn't necessarily need to just be, you know, a wall hanging. You could incorporate it even into. Did you see Susie's denim
absolutely.
jacket
You can
earlier?
customise. Yeah, you can customise it onto garments. It's perfect for that because it's hard wearing.
Right.
As I say, once you've got the threads in, they're kind of felt together on the back with the tension of like you sitting on it or you kind of wearing it against your skin. So it means that basically it's going to become stronger and more firm in the fabric. So, I mean, that's the beautiful thing about this technique. You can use it. It's really customisable across many kind of media.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we talked about it all day, haven't we? With Susie's jacket that she was wearing, which was all beautifully embroidered. Then we've had the denim jacket with Jenny as well. It's been very popular. Now, also, somebody's asked about scissors that you use.
Yeah.
We've got Mundal scissors.
Yeah, lovely.
At what point is this just to get as close as you can to
You
snip
want a
them?
lovely pair of sharp, small scissors. So basically, if your scissors are too large, you're going to struggle to get it close enough, the tips close enough. So you want to have them small and sharp so you can get a lovely crisp cut on your thread. Other than that, it's personal taste. So some people with scissors like a particular weight to them or a particular size of handle. Some people like plastic handles, some people like metal. So it's very personal. It's a bit like a fountain pen, basically. You shouldn't lend somebody else your fountain pen because it over time it becomes your fountain pen and it changes to you.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, with scissors are very much the same. We're all a bit obsessive about our scissors when it comes to...
I can't believe how many scissors crafters have. Textiles have so many, and now I understand the importance.
Oh
of
yeah,
so
now
many
you've
I
been welcomed into the obsessive fold.
Yeah.
It's secret crew of obsessives. Yes, we have all sorts of scissors and we use them for all sorts of things. So we have applique scissors and lace scissors. We have rounded ends with the bobbles. We have curved scissors, angled scissors. We have these scissors with the sharp points, gold scissors. You name it, and that's just before you even get onto your dressmaking snips. So there's so much. So you can it's a buyer's playground basically.
Yeah, absolutely. We love to offer you lots of different variety. They're a really great brand, Mundal, as well.
Yeah.
There's loads of scissors on our website if you want to have a look. They're the 4-inch ones.
They've got a nice weight to them, the Mundal.
Yeah.
Right, what should I show you now? So what I thought I'd do is I'd maybe show you some of the whipped wheel. So the whipped wheel's a really pleasing stitch.
I love all these names. Who knows these?
Sometimes it's known as a spider's web. So the thing about it is that you pop your spokes in. So you can see I've popped orange spokes in, and it's literally just a cross. So you put a cross in and then a cross again. And then all you have to do is you bring up the colour that you want to use to decorate, And then what you'll do is you pass underneath. So you back over one, back over that spoke and forward underneath two. So back over that last one and forward underneath two. So what you're basically doing is wrapping a thread and then travelling underneath that to the next one so you can wrap that one as well. And it looks like a little ice gem or a sea anemone. Once you've worked them, I think it's just such a nice effect. And you can change your colours. You can see I've started with a darker green here. I'm going to a lighter green. And once you've decided that you've got enough revolutions and you want to change the colour, you basically, you take your needle down in the middle of the spokes, take them down in between the spokes, change your colour.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you've got loads of colours in the kits, haven't you?
Absolutely.
Change them up.
Go for it.
Are all the walls dedicated to kits that we have? We haven't got kits, the walls on their own. No, we need definitely more.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the thing. I
walls.
think there's so much choice. You can really kind of go for it with this. As I say, it's a really pleasing combination, but you can use any colour combination. As I say, you normally want to use a limited colour palette with this. As I say, it's 4 of one shade, 4 of another shade, and then 2 shades of a contrast, which is the traditional Jacobean approach. Whereas if you want to go to town with it and use it, you know, multicoloured, you go for it. It can be anything you want.
I can see why that's called the spider's web, actually. It does work well. It's frustrating that I know how much it looks amazing on television, but actually you can't even see the full beauty of this. It's a real 3D. I'm looking at this from the side angle and the textures are beautiful.
Yeah, it's because with the spider's web, particularly because you've got your spokes, you've got this kind of effect. It really kind of undulates from the side. So as you're working it at home, you'll suddenly see that, as I say, what I mean about looking like a sea anemone or an ice gem. It's
I wonder if I lower that down.
There you go.
You can see more so.
So you're starting to get the feel of that. And then what I did was I just popped on this central flower area. Once I put my my spider's web in, my whipped wheel, I then popped some little French knots around the outside. So you can see that on the other one, I think. Yeah. So you can see here, I used the purple to do my whipped wheel, and then I popped some little pink French knots around the outside.
Oh, it looks lovely.
So it's you can see you get a real mixture of the colours as well. It just gives it a little pop.
It does. It works so well. And then they would make beautiful wall hangings, wouldn't they? You just got to put them out of reach of people or in glass or something.
As I say, I mean, you
It's
can become very precious about them, and that's fine. But actually, if you're not going to be precious about your textiles, these are the ideal ones not to be precious about. Because, as I say, they're hard-wearing fabrics, they're hard-wearing threads.
Well, you said they'll outlive us and...
Absolutely, unless you set fire to them, then they'll be here for the next 100 years. They're heritage. So it's a legacy textile, basically. So it's a beautiful thing, and it's a great way of spending your time.
I'd love to see your studio or your house. You must just have... embroidery work everywhere. Do you get very sort of, do you find?
Yeah, in my studio, it's literally in every little nook and cranny you can find. It's basically the next place you turn. Oh, there's more things. Oh, there's more. There's beads. And there's a lot of things. It's basically you pick stuff up over time, and it's stuff you've made, stuff you've designed, things that you've bought of other people's that you've admired. There's so much out there, and then before you even get onto the threads, the fabric, the beads, the crystals, the needles, it's I love it. It's like Aladdin's cave. There's something everywhere. It's fantastic. I love that space. It's my happy space. I've got a thing on the wall that says that this is our happy space, and I do share it with other people when they come into my classroom and stuff, and my clients when they come and discuss work. And it's one of those places that you kind of like, you feel very relaxed, and you go out feeling really buzzy about it because you're like, actually, there's something really cheerful about being surrounded by things that have been lovingly made, and with detail and care, and
do you take it home?
Yeah, I mean, I don't always take my embroideries home and put them on the wall. I've literally just moved house, so I was having a discussion about this last night, and it's really funny because I take work home and stitch on it. And then I'll take it away to my happy place, into my studio. So it's not that my home's not my happy place. It's just, it's really funny. I have different things in my home. So I have a lot of other people's photography and lino cuts and things. So it's like I have other people's things in my home. And then in my studio, I've got my things and other people's things. So it's a really kind of weird kind of dichotomy of how you approach artwork.
You need to come on one of your classes. Me too. We've got a couple of questions. So this is Jennifer in Derbyshire. Hi both. I'm a bit hit and miss with French knots. I have better results with colonial knots.
Yeah.
Could I use them instead?
Absolutely, yeah, Jenny, you can use what you like. If you want to use Peking knots, you could use those. If you want colonial knots, that's fine. But as I say, let's try and beat that problem on the head. So let's just recap that for you and make sure that you're happy with it.
Because it's actually more simple than we think.
So straightforward.
I think there's so many people that say wrap this many times or...
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. As I say, I normally put one thread in the needle. If you want a bigger knot, put a bigger number of threads. So if you want more than one thread, if you want a bigger needle, a bigger knot at the end. So as I say...
So you're holding that tension there.
Yeah, hold the tension of the thread. People quite often worry about trying to get all things tiddly down here. Don't worry about that. All you want to do is hold the tension of the thread, wrap round once. You could go over or under, doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's very forgiving. Hold that onto the needle. Take your needle down into virtually the same hole. If you go down to the same hole, it's easy to pull through to the back. That's a lot of work for no result. Yeah. So then pull down the twist to the face of the fabric so you don't get that bunny ear.
You're not even holding the needle
I'm not even holding it. And then just pull through. And as I say, the only difference then is how tight I pull it. So that's reasonably loose. If I pull it tighter, it's smaller. So hopefully, Jenny, that will solve your problems with
go for it, Jenny.
French knots. Be brave, go for it. But if you prefer colonial knots, do it. It's your call.
And Deborah's asked, if you embroider crewel work onto a garment, is it okay to wash?
Yeah, the beautiful thing about things like Appletons is that they're colour fast, so you can wash them.
Appletons are the wools that are in the kit
that are in the
aren't they?
kit. So just make sure, if you're using other wools, just make sure they're colour fast and that they are washable. So obviously you don't want to do all that work and then find out that you're ending up with a multicoloured stain across your fabric. So if you just check they're colour fast, the wool tends to be really sturdy, particularly a crewel wool. So it's actually really kind of diverse and able to use in other mediums onto other fabrics. So just support the fabric sufficiently to do your stitching so you don't get puckering, make sure it's taut in the frame, and then that means that you'll get a lovely finish and you'll be able to wear it, wash it, do what you like with it.
There you go, Deborah. Amazing. I'm ever so sorry, Julia. The kits have both sold out. They sold out in the first sort of 10 minutes of the show. But what an amazing wealth of knowledge. There's so much to learn, isn't there? And it is just, then you can tell, you just dive in. Oh, yeah. There's so much to learn. Have we got time for one more stitch?
Oh, I think so. So, again, we're talking about simple stitches for beginners. So we were talking about back stitch. So back stitch is one that everyone recognises. So I've used it for the tendril at the top. So you can start off quite large, so you travel forward and you go down into the end of the previous stitch. So hence you're travelling backwards, hence the name, back stitch. But as you're going around the curve, just make sure that as the shape becomes more complex, you can make your stitches shorter, so you'll get a better effect on the curve. So you can see I'm getting slightly shorter with my stitches as I'm travelling round. And then what you can do is you can decorate those back stitches. So if you want to add further detailing, I'll just park that needle up a second. You can then you can whip or weave. So basically what you can do is use a tapestry needle or a blunt end of the needle. I've just turned my needle round, so I'm using the eye end. Oh, yeah. And what you can do is you can whip underneath it. So you travel underneath it, and then you come back to the same side and travel underneath the next one, and then travel underneath the next one, and that gives you a candy stripe.
Gosh, that's amazing.
Really straightforward. The other way to decorate it is if you go from side to side. So if we go from the left on the next one, and then I can go from the right on the next one, and you end up with a lovely little kind of serpentine. So it just weaves in and out, and you can change the tension of that. So if I loosen the tension, it becomes a slightly more extravagant.
Oh, I love that, like the wave. Again, it just adds different textures, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So it's really enjoyable. It's a very straightforward stitch. Everyone knows backstitch.
Yeah.
So it's one that is a way of making it different. So you can use backstitch, you can whip it then, you can use the weaving in it, and it gives you 3 different effects from one stitch.
Yeah, and one basic stitch that we all do a lot of, actually.
Yeah, that's it.
That's brilliant. Right, is there anything else available in stock at the moment? Are these all sold out? I believe the base potentially sold out. If you did miss that hoop, here's another hoop. It doesn't have the clamp on it, but it is another hoop. Is that the one that you mean? Oh! There is a couple left of the table clamp. Okay, there are a couple left, but if you miss out on it, then here is another display hoop actually.
Yeah, so it's a display hoop, but you can stitch into this. But if you're wanting to use one of these, then what you can do is you can just make a rest. So put something heavy onto here, onto a table, so that you're not having to hold it, because as I say, if you're holding it the whole time, then you're going to end up with a sore hand. So you can just kind of put just a heavy book. It's not obviously nowhere near as practical as this, but it does mean that you can use it quite easily for the purposes of your embroidery, and you get your both hands on the work. So,
brilliant. Thank you so much. There are more sizes online, by the way. When are you here next?
Next month doing gold work.
Oh, brilliant. And that's the section from your book, isn't it?
Yeah, so we're going to be doing...
The section that you've written in the book.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing all new way, so colour over gold.
Isn't that for Christmas in July?
It is. It's a little robin, so...
Very, very exciting.
Yes.
Thank you so much. It's so lovely to see you. There are still a few of the books available if you want to add that to your order. Well done to everybody that got the kit. Don't go anywhere, because Jenny is coming back with a gorgeous panel right after this.
Here at Sewing Quarter, we like to send all our new customers a free gift to welcome them to the Sewing Quarter family. And for a limited